Which RPGs are the easiest for you to run? For me, I lean toward modern stories. I'm just better at them. Maybe it's because they require the least research, but modern in general. To be more specific, I would say modern adventures with a supernatural element to them. Maybe a little creepy, maybe mysteries involved. I actually do pretty well at mysteries, and based on folks I've spoken to, those are apparently hard to run, but for some reason I gravitate to them. So the easiest for me to run are modern day, somewhere between urban fantasy and horror, procedural stories. Now, there's obviously more to this question, as there has been to most of the questions, and I think some have done a better job of recognizing that than others. If someone were to ask me for advice, if you were asking me, what in general is the easiest to run, that becomes a tougher question because everybody's different. Some people are so good at improv that planning is a hindrance. Some people are so good at planning but are not really good at any kind of improv. When the story goes too far off book, they tend to panic or flounder. I'm going to assume that most people are somewhere in the middle. And so, for me, I would recommend a pre-written outline of an adventure. Not one where there's a bunch of box text, not one where there's attempts made to cover every possibility, but a good framework that leaves enough breathing space so that it's not brought low by the player's actions, but one that has enough of a framework that the whole thing isn't just coming out of your head. Now, the easiest specific RPG for me to run is, of course, Savage Worlds, because I've been running it the longest. And I would argue that the easiest RPG for anyone to run is whatever they've been running the longest. But Savage Worlds has an interesting piece to it that I like quite a bit. And actually, Shadow of the Demon Lord has this as well. But they present it a bit differently. But in Savage Worlds, there are 4 types of adventures. You've got your standard, classic module type adventure that, anywhere from 8 to 40 pages, depending on what it is, where you've got your traditional story with a big background and multiple scenes set up and all those things. That's the traditional thing they have. But where I think Savage Worlds thrives when it comes to pre-written material is in its Savage Tales. Now, their Savage Tales really take 3 forms. There is the classic Savage Tale, which you'll find within a plot point campaign. There is the plot point itself, which is really just a Savage Tale with meta plot implications. And then there's the one sheet, which is really just a Savage Tale that's just designed more for a one-shot adventure. And so the easiest scenario for me, if I was going to quickly run a game, would be to grab Savage Worlds, grab a one-sheet, grab pre-generated characters, do about 5 to 10 minutes of planning, and go. That would be the best. One-sheets are great because they contain the entire thread of the adventure, typically with any NPC stats that you need, all on a single double-sided sheet of paper. I didn't realize that was a tongue twister. And so these are great because you can just run them very quickly by the book. They take about 2 hours. Or you can kind of let the players do their thing. Present the problem. There's enough information there to tell you what's going on. Run it at a little more leisurely pace, and they'll go easily 4 hours. You can apply it to a current campaign if you want to. And when adding in any subplots that are going on with your campaign, it could be an adventure for a couple of sessions. Not a problem. Easily done. So there are definitely options out there. If you're good at improv, then a game like Lasers and Feelings, one sheet of paper, I've talked about it a couple times now, is perfect. Fate Accelerated, pretty easy to run. The drawback of those games is that they tend toward more improv. So if you're not an improv person, not a great one to run. With the advent of Fate Core's skill cards that you can get now, that can be run just as quickly as Fate Accelerated, as long as you know the rules. You do character creation on the fly. There's a great example of that when Ryan Macklin ran it on Tabletop on YouTube, and using the skill cards, and you can do that in a single 4-hour session. Not a problem at all. That's pretty much it, though. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and really, it's another one of these it depends answers, and that's what this whole month is about. It's all about sharing what you would do and what you might recommend for other people. So it looks like I might actually, and I'm almost afraid to say this, I might actually make it to the end of the month for the first time, complete RPG a day. So here's hoping. And until tomorrow, do good, avoid evil, and play more games.